All right, gather round. Come on, step away from all the noise for a minute. I want to tell you an old story, a kind of myth, really, about what it means to transform, to break free from the prisons we end up building for ourselves. This is the legend of the Light Jester. See, it's a story about three things: a cage, a mirror, and a dance. It's about a seeker, someone who, could be you, could be me, who walked a very, very long and difficult road, from the heaviest, soul-crushing gravity to the lightest kind of freedom imaginable. Our story begins where so many do, with fear. It starts with this seeker trying to build a perfect sanctuary for himself, a gilded cage he thought would keep all the chaos and uncertainty of the world out. They say this all happened in a place called the Sovereign Absurd, and here, our seeker, just terrified of the unknown, built his fortress. But not out of stone or steel, no. He built it from pure logic. Every single threat had to be level and safe. He was so sure he was forging armor, but really, he was just forging an anchor. This entire philosophy he lived by, it has a name: static control. You know what that is? It's the desperate desire to just hit pause on life. To freeze everything exactly as it is because you believe that the anchoring stability of order is the only thing that matters. It's a total rejection of the messy, unpredictable, and often chaotic way that we actually grow. But what was he so afraid of? What was he running from?
He was running from the spirit of becoming. That's the life force that thrives on change, the one that sees chaos not as some threat, but as fertile soil. It's the understanding that sometimes things have to be torn down for new life to even have a chance to begin.
And to defend his rigid little world from this spirit, and maybe more importantly, to hide the deep inner emptiness he felt, the seeker put on a mask. He became the Shadow Jester. His weapons of choice? Biting sarcasm and cruel mockery. These were sophisticated tools he used to keep everyone and everything at a safe distance. He wasn't a guardian of anything noble. He had become a sentinel of resentment. But here's the thing about a world that's built to be that rigid: it's also incredibly brittle. You can't hold back this spirit of becoming forever. Eventually, something's gotta give. Something has to break. And oh, does it break. Out of what seems like nowhere, a figure appears. They call it the Sapphire Jester. The stories describe it as a whirlwind of kinetic nihilism. This jester doesn't show up to argue or debate. It does something much worse. It simply holds up a terrifying mirror, forcing our seeker to finally see his precious gilded cage for exactly what it is. You see, the Sapphire Jester brings a devastating truth. It's known as the logic of zero, and it's the revelation that everything the seeker so carefully built, everything he hoarded, it's worthless. It's just dross. All that striving was nothing more than frantic delirium. And this isn't just about being cruel. It's the necessary, painful collapse of a life built on hollow, unearned values. Now, when your entire world collapses like that, you're faced with two paths. You can follow the logic of zero all the way down, letting your life story just turn into the dead, heavy lead of mortality. Or you can choose the logic of one. You can take all that destructive energy and use it as creative fuel, forging something real and authentic right out of the rubble. Our seeker is plunged straight into the abyss. And down there, in the total, suffocating darkness, he finds out he's not alone. He's forced to finally confront the ugliest man, a figure that is the living embodiment of all his deepest shame, his self-loathing, all the parts of himself he built that cage to hide from in the first place. But down there, there's no escape. You can't just build another cage. You can't put on another mask. The only way out of the abyss is to face that shadow, to embrace it with what the legend calls terminal honesty. A truth so total, so absolute, that it's final. And having done this, having faced the ugliest parts of himself, the seeker emerges a completely transformed being. He's lighter, he's free. But the story isn't quite over. His newfound lightness has to face one final test, from the last ghosts of his old, heavy life. First, he comes face to face with the priestly monster, a truth-telling monster in priestly robes. The scary part is, he doesn't lie. Instead, he weaponizes the heavy weight of past values. He offers a false salvation from the very freedom the seeker just won, trying to use his leaden logic to freeze your atoms right back into a predictable, orderly state. He's there to build one last gilded cage. And standing right beside him is a familiar horror, the Shadow Beast. This is the Seeker's old mask, the Shadow Jester, but now it's fused with this raw, primal malice. It's a dark reflection of joy itself. Its laughter isn't happy. It's a freezing gale. This is the sentinel of resentment at its absolute peak, trying to siphon away all his warmth with the breath of the void, trying to drag him right back into the cold mud of the herd. So, how do you fight ghosts like these? Well, after having stared into the void itself, the Seeker's victory doesn't come from fighting at all. It comes from a final, profound act of alchemy. His liberation comes from a deep, sudden understanding. He realizes the monster's truths are just tools of static control. He sees the beast's cruel mockery not as an attack on him, but as a desperate defense against its own terrifying inner emptiness. And maybe most importantly, he refuses to be his own judge anymore. He finally understands that's a burden the ugliest man found to be heavier even than the gaze of God. And here we have it, the absolute heart of the legend. Victory isn't about destroying his demons. It's about learning to dance with them. He performs a final grave dance, not on them, but on the suffocating seriousness they represent. He chooses lightness over their leaden, crushing gravity. And in this dance, he integrates them. He accepts them as a part of his story. And by doing that, all of that old weight, all that darkness, all that lead of mortality that once held him down, it's transmuted. It becomes his fuel. It becomes vibrant, creative light. And with that one final act of alchemy, the last barrier, that uncanny mirror between reflection and reality, it just falls away. He's not the Seeker anymore. He's not a prisoner. He's not a shadow. He is simply the light Jester, dancing freely right on top of the ruins of the world he once built to imprison himself. And so, as the fire dies down, the legend leaves us with a question. The Seeker's story is over, sure, but ours is still being written. The uncanny mirror has fallen. So, what dance is waiting for you?